Hi, it's Steph, and the beautiful foxgloves are back in bloom. So I thought that this evening we could do a quick garden tour to take a look at some of these beautiful cottage garden flowers that are currently in bloom. Exactly 2 years ago, in June of 2022, I had a beautiful display of foxgloves. And foxgloves are biennial, so they will bloom every 2 years, or a plant has a 2-year life cycle. So those initial foxgloves had died down, they dropped a bunch of seeds, and here we are with a bunch of self-seeded foxglove that is blooming again exactly 2 years later. They are stunning. Now, foxglove is a toxic plant. Their seeds are toxic, so if you have kids or pets, you'd want to be really careful about growing them. But the height on these makes such an impact in the garden. They're just so stately, and they're really a sight. The variety of foxglove that I have planted here is called Apricot Delight, and they're a mix with apricot and purples and pinks and even some ivory. They're really easy to grow from seed, and they're also prolific seeders. So they will drop a ton of seed once they're done blooming, and then you will end up with a bunch of seedlings. My Maynight Salvia is looking absolutely gorgeous. This salvia has been planted here for several years, and it's such a nice shade of purple. It's like an indigo. I have several varieties of bearded iris. This one here is called Stage Lights, and it is still blooming. It's been blooming for about a week now, and it's an apricot color, and it has some purple on the falls. All of my Sensation Allium is now done blooming, but I keep the seed heads up because I feel like they make a really pretty accent in the garden. Even when they're not in bloom, you can see I have a cluster of them here. And an allium that I did just plant last fall that I had tried for the first time last year and loved is this one here. It's called Christophe. And look how large these bloom heads are. They are massive. Now, I will say that the ones that I had that bloomed this time last year, they came back much smaller this year. So it could very well be that they are really large in year one, and then they get smaller as the years go on. The weigela Wine and Roses is in full bloom at the moment as well, and it is loaded with these bell-shaped fuchsia colored flowers. And this weigela is really beautiful because it has dark foliage. My knockout roses are also beginning to bloom. The variety of knockout roses that I have is called Double Pink, and as I'm looking, I see that there is a bumblebee just taking a nap inside that rose there. Do you see that? Now, this rose is really beautiful, and the knockout roses are really easy care for me here in my garden. Each year I do get a little bit of a sawtooth larva infestation, usually around this time of year, but within a couple of months it will clear up. The shrub will put out new foliage, and you won't even know that it happened. But it does not affect its blooms. It will continue to produce blooms from this time in mid-spring all the way through fall when we get our first frost. Here we have some ivory foxglove. Look at those. They're actually an apricot color, but it's just really light that it almost looks ivory. And foxgloves will begin blooming from the bottom, and they will open all the way up until they get to the top. As we continue to head down the walkway here, you can see that I also have some Nepeta planted alongside my Maynight Salvia. The variety of Nepeta that I have is called Cat's Pajamas, and it is a lower growing Nepeta, and it's a really beautiful and great performer. Now both Nepeta and Salvia are huge pollinator attracting plants. They're always loaded with bees all over them. And I really love having these two purples side by side because they contrast so beautifully. My candy corn spirea is now all yellow and it's starting to put on all of its bloom buds. You can see here that it will be blooming probably in the next week or two. It has a really pretty hot pink bloom. And this is a really great spirea. It goes through so many different colors. It'll emerge in really late winter, early spring with red foliage. Then it goes orange. Then it goes a chartreuse color before turning yellow. And all of the tips have a reddish color, just a really pretty one. You can see here in front of this Nepeta that there is a bunch of foxglove seedlings. So you can see that once you grow foxglove, you will always have foxglove. It will just take the plants a 2-year cycle before they send up those beautiful bloom spikes. Now I will end up digging those up and giving some away and putting some in other places that I prefer them so that they can continue to grow and bloom for me when they're ready. And right here by the Tamakiyama Japanese maple, I have another group of iris, and this one is called First Pick. And it's a really pretty purple with white on the lower falls. It's like a creamy ivory color. I really love bearded iris. Now this one is so prolific this year. It has produced so many blooms and there are still so many more to open up. And continuing down the walkway, I have yet another iris. And this one here is called Whale's Tail. And on camera, it's going to look more purple, but the lighter color there is such a true light blue, like a sky blue. It's stunning. And this one here, the way that it stands out against the backdrop of the false mop cypress is just really pretty. As we continue on to this other bed that I have here by our driveway, it's also looking really beautiful, and I have some peonies that are in bloom. So right here, this variety is called Shirley Temple, and it's a beautiful white variety. Look at that. It is loaded with blooms this year. Some gorgeous fluffiness. Peony is another quintessential cottage garden flower, as is lupin, which is right behind, interplanted with some more iris. And this iris variety is called Poems of Ecstasy, and it is stunning. I love all my iris varieties. There's only one that I would say that I might swap out for a more interesting variety because it is just a solid peach, but all of them are just so gorgeous. This bed has such beautiful spring color. Just last week, my Monet Purple Effect weigela had all of its pink blooms, and the lupin had just started up. And now the iris has started, as well as the peonies, and I even have a rose in bloom. And this beautiful evergreen here in the center has put on so much growth this year as well. This is a weeping blue spruce, and it adds a nice evergreen interest to this bed. You can see along the front here, I've also added some Cat's Pajamas Nepeta. I like to repeat that all the way up and down my front borders. And just look at this lupin. This was started from bare root plants. And as beautiful as they are, I'm going to be honest and say that lupin overwhelms me because it gets so large so fast. So I think it's wonderful for a spot like a cottage garden where you have a lot of space for them to spread out and look as beautiful as they are. But if you have a bed where you're kind of limited in terms of space, it can very quickly take over, as you can see here. So I'm still going to decide as to whether or not I want to keep these in these beds because I don't want to risk them crowding out any of the other plants that I have planted here. But they are gorgeous. It makes such an impact. This bed was just recently edged and it does need some mulch, as you can see in the front here. So I'll get to that eventually. But a rose that is blooming and looking really beautiful is this one here. This is the only English rose that I have that performs well for me, and it is the Olivia Rose Austin. And it has tons of blooms on it. Behind the Olivia Rose Austin, I have these really beautiful white Siberian iris. Now, the variety I'm not sure about, so we'll just call them white Siberian iris. I bought them at a garden fair several years ago. But these are gorgeous. I've been able to divide them a couple of times, and I have another beautiful grouping of them in my patio bed. And right behind them is another iris that I just moved to that spot in the fall, and it is a variegated iris. This one here is the Iris Palito alba variegata, and the bloom actually smells like grapes to me. It is so fragrant, and it has this really pretty foliage that is a light sage green with a creamy white edge. I have another lace leaf Japanese maple that is a variety. It might be a Tamakiyama, but it was unnamed when we purchased it. And I just love the way that it drapes over this retaining wall here. And continuing down the back side of this wall, I have a tiny wine 9-bark that is currently beginning to bloom. And from this angle, you can also see that I have another pale pink iris, bearded iris, called Happenstance in the back there. And here are the blooms on the tiny wine 9-bark. This is a really great shrub. It has dark foliage, a peeling bark, and it blooms in the spring. The deer and bunny keep away from it, and this particular variety stays more compact than some of the other 9-barks. And as we head into the backyard, there are a couple more iris that I want to show you, but you can see here that grouping of the white Siberian iris is also beginning to bloom here in our patio bed. And I have some alliums that are peeking through the Japanese maple. I will have to move those when they're done blooming. And I have some tall ones here. Now the variety might be Ambassador. They're really beautiful as well. And here on my left side shed bed, I have 3 varieties of iris that are looking absolutely gorgeous. Some verbascum that is growing in the front. Now this variety is called Southern Charm, and it's a really beautiful apricot pink color. I purchased this at a plant sale. It was a small start. Last year I only had maybe 1 or 2 bloom stalks, and this year it is really filled out. I have an iris here called Champagne and Strawberries, which has a gorgeous mauve fall and a creamy apricot top. The columbine or equilegia, the Nora Barlow, as well as the black Barlow, is still holding on, so they bloom for a really long time. And I also have a dark iris here called Black is Black, and the top is a little bit purple, but the falls are really a black, almost velvet looking petal. Gorgeous. And the iris that absolutely blew me away this year is this one here. It is called Downtown Brown, and the color is like a coffee milk. It is beautiful. It almost looks like it's going to be purple when it's in bud form, like there. And then as it opens up, it has the most beautiful coloring. Now I purchased most of my iris rhizomes. In fact, almost all of them, with the exception of one or two, were purchased from Shriners, which is an online resource that I like to order my iris from. And poppies. This is the Royal Wedding Poppy. Looks like there's a little spider in there, and they're just starting to bloom. But I did get a couple of blooms this year, which is exciting. I just planted these last spring. But this Southern Charm verbascum is just gorgeous. I have a white variety in my front garden beds that I started from seed, and that one is really pretty as well. As I was editing my video, I realized that I had yet another variety of iris blooming in this bed. So that is a total of 4 iris I have here. And it is another brown variety called Coffee Trader. And it is absolutely stunning. Look at that. Now, iris are so beautiful, but they are so short-lived. So I wanted to make sure to document this beauty. And the Sarah Bernhardt peony that I moved over to this area in the fall is also blooming. And this is my favorite peony. It is so fragrant. And it doesn't have as many buds on it this year, but that is because it was just transplanted. But it is looking so gorgeous between all of this columbine. It's drizzling, so the plants are loving this gentle rain, but I wanted to make sure to capture that Coffee Trader iris. So I ran out here with my camera. Well, that brings us to the end of this evening garden tour featuring some of my cottage garden flowers and my beautiful foxglove. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I will go ahead and catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button, and please consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my future videos. And we'll see you soon.